Want to get cheat sheets, audiobooks, lessons, apps, and much more every month for free? Just click the link in the description to get your free language gifts of the month.
Hi everybody, welcome back to Ask Alisha, the weekly series where you ask me questions and I answer them. Maybe. Okay, let's get to your first question. First question this week comes from It's Mimart. Hello, It's Mimart. It's Mimart says, when do we use the preposition to in a sentence? In these examples, why do we use to? She is now engaged to her longtime boyfriend. And I gave birth to 2 healthy boys. Okay, this is a big question and a big answer. There are lots of reasons that we use to in sentences. Let's talk about a few. First, we use to describe movement. So, for example, I went to France, or he went to the office. We use to before the destination, the place that we are traveling to. So we use to talk about movement. We also use to in time expressions, like she worked from 9 to 5. It means until in these cases. Or she jogged from 3 to 4. So we can use it to express time in this way. We also use to when we're using the infinitive form of a verb in a sentence. So for a reminder, the infinitive form of a verb is the base form, like the dictionary form, the kind that you find in the dictionary. So that's to plus the verb. There are many cases, there are many different grammar patterns, many different structures in which we use the infinitive form. So a few examples of this are, we're going to buy lunch, and he called to say hello. In other cases, though, the rules kind of disappear a bit. They fade away. It's not so easy to apply a simple rule. This is because these uses of to, like the ones that you've shared in your example sentences, are actually from idioms or they're parts of phrasal verbs. These rules don't apply, however, when we look at to in phrasal verbs and in idioms. So you have to remember these kind of like separate vocabulary words. You have to memorize them the same way that you would vocabulary words. Unfortunately, there isn't a clear-cut rule for when to use to in cases like these. So for example, in your first example sentence, she got engaged to her longtime boyfriend. The to in that sense is part of the get engaged to expression. That's an idiom, to get engaged to someone. That's a set phrase. In the second example sentence, she gave birth to 2 healthy boys. To, in that sentence, is part of the expression give birth to. So there are lots of set expressions, phrasal verbs and idioms that use to, and you just have to memorize them like vocabulary words. They're like kind of independent expressions, independent phrases that you need to think about. So this is a quick introduction to a few uses of to, and also just consider that sometimes there's not really a specific rule for the reason why to is used in an expression. It's just the vocabulary word, or it's just the idiom. So a good way perhaps to practice this is read. I would suggest reading, and over time, naturally, you'll start to kind of get a feel for the expressions that use to and the expressions that use by or at or in or on and so on. Similar issues exist with other prepositions for sure. So I would suggest reading as much as possible to help you identify the most natural choice of preposition. You can read novels, you can read news articles, you can read social media posts, whatever. Make sure you're reading a lot, and then you'll kind of, over time, as I said, get a feel for what should be the preposition used. So I hope that this helps you. I hope this was a good introduction to a few cases in which it is kind of rule-based use of to, but also just to give you a heads up, give you some information about these expressions that use to as kind of a set expression. So thanks very much for the question. All right, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Vinay. Hi, Vinay. Vinay says, how do we talk about simultaneous events in present continuous tense? Okay, to talk about 2 or more events happening right now, so 2 or more things that are happening in the present moment, you can try a pattern like one of these. I'm listening to music and working at the same time. Are you cooking and cleaning right now? He's watching me while operating the camera. So a reminder, these patterns are used for two actions that are happening right now at the same time. If you want to talk about actions that happen regularly, like habits, you need to use simple present tense. We don't use that ing form for regular actions. We can only use these patterns for actions that are happening now. So please keep this in mind. But I hope that this helps you describe simultaneous actions in the present. Thanks very much for the question. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Nellie. Hi, Nellie. Nellie says, hi, Alisha. What is the meaning of educated guesses? Thank you. Yeah, sure. Great question. An educated guess is a guess that we make after doing research or after getting some information about the topic. So we can compare this to just a guess. So a guess is just something that we come up with. We have an idea about something, we share it. We make a guess about something. An educated guess sounds like something we actually thought about. We tried to find information to make our guess more accurate. So for example, if I asked you, who do you think will be the next president of the United States? And you have no idea, but you want to guess, you could say a famous person like Beyonce or something. So that's probably not a good strategy, making a guess like that, though President Beyonce does sound pretty awesome. So making an educated guess, on the other hand, would require you to do some research. Who are the candidates? What is their position on various issues? Are they popular or not? So after doing that kind of research and then sharing a guess, like choosing one of the candidates, that would be an example of making an educated guess. So this is the difference between an educated guess and just a guess. Keep in mind that lots of people like to pretend to make an educated guess when they're really just guessing. So keep this in mind too. I hope that this helps you. Thanks for the question. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Lynn. Hi, Lynn. Lynn says, hi, Alisha. I know we use a when it is followed by a consonant sound and use an when it is followed by a vowel sound. But I heard we pronounce a as a or depending on the consonant or vowel sound condition as well. I just put these rules together and I'm confused now. What's the difference? For example, he is an or a European person, or this is a or a one-way street. Thank you so much. Sure. Okay, first let's review the or a and an rules. We use the indefinite article a or before a word that begins with a consonant sound. We use an before a word that begins with a vowel sound. So a key difference here is sound. Be careful, this has nothing to do with spelling. So for example, an hour, we use an there because hour begins with a vowel sound. It starts with an H, yes, in spelling, but the sound is a vowel sound, hour. So this is the rule for using a or a and an. To answer your question, however, there actually isn't a rule for when native speakers use the a or pronunciation. It's completely up to the speaker. So don't worry about what you've studied. You don't have to change anything there. So just keep in mind that native speakers will use a pronunciation for emphasis sometimes. So we do this when we want to emphasize that there's a key difference in some situation. So here's an example. Let's imagine you are looking for your phone and I find one here. And I say, hey, I found this phone. You might reply and you might say, you found a phone. You didn't find my phone. So the reason that a native speaker would choose to use the a pronunciation there is to emphasize that I just found this phone in particular. I found a phone. Yes, it belongs to the category phone, but it's not the speaker's phone. So the speaker is making a contrast. They want to clearly show the difference between a phone and my phone. This desired thing and this thing you found are different. So that's the reason that they would use this a emphasis, so that pronunciation as emphasis in that situation. Let's try one more example. Imagine we're coworkers in this situation, and I'm looking for a file, an important file, and you offer to help me. You find a file that you think is correct, and you show it to me, and I go, yeah, you found a file, but it's not the file. So in that case, I'm contrasting, I'm showing a difference, I'm emphasizing a difference between this file you found and the file that I'm looking for. In this case, I'm using the file to mean the file that we both know about, this file that we both are looking for right now. I'm using the A pronunciation to draw attention, to kind of point out that this thing and this thing are different. So when I say A pronunciation might be used for emphasis, this is what I mean. So in sum, you can use either A or a. It really doesn't matter, it's up to you. But you might hear native speakers using that A pronunciation for the article when they're trying to emphasize a key difference between this thing and another thing. So I hope that this helps you. Thanks for the question. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Godson Ernst Pierre-Louis. Hello, Godson Ernst. Godson Ernst says, I often hear two different pronunciations of the word neither, and today I'd like to know which one is right for me, please. Thank you. Aha, the answer is both. Both. Neither and neither are both totally acceptable pronunciations. There's actually a famous George Gershwin song, if you're familiar with George Gershwin. He wrote Rhapsody in Blue. He had some musicals. Anyway, he and his brother Ira did some like cool musical stuff. But there's a very famous example in their work that references this issue. So they have neither and neither is good examples, or like potato and potato, both acceptable, or tomato and tomato. So there are different pronunciations for a few words, and you might know some more, but they're both fine. They're both acceptable. You can use neither or neither. I would say personally that probably in today's American English we use neither, and for the other words that I mentioned, tomato and potato, those are the more common pronunciations, but you can still use the other pronunciations if you like. So that would be my personal recommendation, but you can use both. They're both fine. So I hope that this helps you. Thanks for the question. Okay, that is everything that I have for this week. Thank you, as always, for sending your questions. Remember, you can send them to me at EnglishClass101.com/ask-Alisha. Of course, if you like this episode, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, and check us out at EnglishClass101.com for some other things that can help you with your English studies. Thanks very much for watching this week's episode of Ask Alisha, and I will see you again next week. Bye-bye.